Are we live now? Now? Oh, okay. Hi, hello. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. I will be your host for this evening. You're probably wondering where Cliff is. Unfortunately, the fires of Saruman have gotten to him. Sorry about that. Well, lost my train of thought. So today we're going to be talking about the stylization of the new Lord of the Rings Amazon series and what it could look like, whether it be following the roots of like romance, what that could look like, if that's going to follow more of a modern take of movies nowadays, or if it's going to contain to the original type of romantic vibes we've seen in Lord of the Rings, or if it can take on a scarier facade rather than what Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings with the ring wraiths and the Uruk-hai and just the creatures in general. So, you know, in the comments, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, question mark, just let us know what your thoughts would be about it, and we'll discuss them. Well, I might pull a Gollum and Smeagol on you if Cliff doesn't come here, so, you know. Here we're also joined by Justin, who's hiding behind the camera right now. No, he's shaking his head no. It's just his ghost, so. Just here by myself then. Well, I'm at the Scum and Villainy Cantina, like the coolest place to hang out here in Hollywood. It's right by the Pantages and the Museum of Death as well. So if you're 21 and older, if you want to drink, but if you're just a fan in general of anything nerdy, you should come down here, order some food, look at the atmosphere, and talk to JC. Well, after the show, there's actually a screening of Fellowship of the Ring. I forget where because it slips my mind at this moment. But Justin's ghost and I are going to go and see Fellowship of the Ring. Maybe grab dinner. I don't know. Yeah, our Nazgul is waiting out back after the show. So afterwards, we're going to hop on that and fly over. Yeah, so as I mentioned, for the topic of the show, it's going to be just a stylization of Lord of the Rings, like in themes. No?
Yeah, speak up.
Really?
Yeah.
I have my mouth like right.
They can hear that.
They can hear that?
You just need to project.
Ah, okay.
They're all in here with you.
Okay, sorry that I'm a naturally quiet person. I hope you can hear my voice now. I'm projecting it at a 80% at the moment. I am no Clifford Broadway, so yeah.
They can hear it now.
Okay, wonderful. So if you didn't catch, I'm sorry about my or romance or adventure and what that could look like in the hands of a different showrunner or director, and if they will follow the same exact theme, like with Aragorn and Arwen, with Aragorn and Arwen's romance and how that was set up, if it could follow that kind of thing, or more of a modern take. Like last night I went to go see the Megalodon, and it kind of got me thinking about movies that are coming out nowadays, how a lot of them are cinematic, and which also kind of led me to think whether or not for the Amazon series, if they're going to take that kind of route and have it more of a cinematic look and feel to it, or if they're going to have it like the Peter Jackson. Well, with Peter Jackson, his was cinematic as well, but it was also more of a realistic feel rather than eye candy, I want to say. But yeah, sorry, like lost my train of thought. So if you're a person like me, you kind of think about, or you're more drawn to the stylization of like Wes Anderson, like the quirkiness of that.
Did you say quirkiness?
Quirkiness, yes.
Quirkiness.
Quirkiness.
Isn't it hard to host a show?
Yes.
Like, even though there's, it's before operating hours here at Scum and Villainy, there's hardly anyone there, but we have one fan. Hey,
Yeah.
came here to see Cliff, who's not here yet. But even without an audience, even with all your friends in the chat room, it's still
nerve-wracking, and then your mouth gets dry, and then you're standing up here and you're like, hi everyone, how are you doing? Hey, you know.
But it's just the internet. It's just the internet. It's
Well,
your
that's
friends
the
that you
thing.
talk to
That's
every
the
day
thing.
or every week, some every day.
Yeah, some every day.
You can text us anytime you want. The phone number is scrolling above our heads, 530-64-FRODO. That's really our phone number.
Yeah.
643-7636. The phone number is going to scroll above our heads the whole show. Write it down, save it in your phone, and if you're ever at trivia night and you're stumped and you need to phone a friend, you text the hotline. It will go to me, it will go to Cliff, and it might go to Hannah. The thing is, you don't know who's going to reply to you.
So it's kind of like a mixed bag. You never know whose answer you're going to get.
And whether it will be movie accurate or screen accurate.
Or book accurate,
or
depending on your question.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're at trivia night and the question is, what epic phrase does Gandalf scream at the Balrog? The answer would be...
I'm sorry, what was the question? I blanked out.
She's not even paying attention. She's
I
reading your
am.
comments in the chat room. There's Facebook, there's YouTube. It's great to see everybody. Jeff Scott, I see you. The answer would be, you shall not pass. What epic phrase does Gandalf scream at the Balrog?
Don't move. Bang, bang, bang. No,
That would be the wrong answer, but she would text that to you. I would tell you,
yes.
I would say, you shall not pass, but Cliff would respond and say, you cannot pass, because Gandalf never says, shall not pass in the book. So it's actually a trick question. What he says in the book is not what he says in the movie, and what gives Peter Jackson the right to change the dialogue of J.R.R. Tolkien?
He's Peter Jackson. He's a Kiwi. You do whatever you want.
Cliff is late,
Actually,
so
no.
Cliff gets to sit on the stool today. He gets the stool for this show. We've given him his own mic.
Exactly.
And he can sit right over there with everybody else.
I think he's trying to channel Macaulay
You
Culkin.
cannot pass, says Arovandi, but the answer is you shall not pass. The question is, if they text the hotline and it's trivia night, and the question is, what epic phrase does Gandalf scream at the Balrog? I would answer accurate to the movie. You would answer accurate to the book.
I would definitely answer the first dialogue that I learned as a child. It's in my DNA. One of the reasons why messing around with Tolkien's dialogue is such a problematic thing, I think, is best illustrated not in the scene at the bridge of Khazad-dûm, but I think messing with Tolkien's dialogue is especially apparent in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, when the Witch King has his confrontation with Dernhelm, who is actually Éowyn in disguise. And that dialogue is so precise and so powerful in Tolkien's original book and it was mangled. I'm sorry, even though Peter Jackson and Fran and Philippa won the Oscar for Best Screenplay, they mangled the living daylights out of an otherwise gut-punching, powerful speech by this strong female character, and they just chopped it all up, and Miranda Otto just has this moment where she tries not to be awkward, but she's just like, I am.
You say.
What's that? Can I come around? Am I ejected? Am I
Yeah,
supposed to?
no, you're on the thing, but I need the laptop.
But you need the laptop.
Yeah. What were you gonna say about Ralph Bakshi?
What about Ralph Bakshi's film?
No, he said in maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I'm pretty sure that
The laptop.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that he said or in Return of the King, he left the whole speech in, or at least more of it rather than what Fran and Philippa left in.
What?
Unless I'm thinking of something
He left
else.
the whole speech in.
Or
Wait,
more,
no.
more
Ralph,
of it.
Ralph Bakshi did not animate Eowyn because he didn't get that far in his movies.
She's in the movie. She
Yeah,
has nothing to
in
say.
Return of
She's
the
in the
King.
film.
In,
She's there.
Or I
In
must-
Bakshi's?
I must be thinking of something else then.
Eowyn is quietly standing behind her uncle, where Wormtongue and Gandalf have all the dialogue in that scene. She's just standing there, and Theoden makes a reference to her, but I don't believe she has any dialogue at all.
Oh, I must be thinking of something else then.
Yes.
It's probably all the days, or all the days,
Yes.
all the hours I spent in the sun yesterday.
Yeah, living a carefree high school graduate summer break. What do kids do? See, many
you're
a
asking the
book,
wrong
many
person.
a movie, and
Uh-huh.
many a TV show, and the history of literature of the 20th century has been about the coming of age story of when you graduate high school. The summer after you've graduated high school is the iconic time frame.
Is it though?
American Graffiti is all about people graduating high school, and then what do they do with their summer, and then where they go. But there's the history of classic film of the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s is that. So
Yes.
you just graduated high school.
Yeah, I did.
And
What did you do with your summer?
Ah, okay. Well, for
It's not even over yet.
it's not.
It is over. School starts next week.
My sister started
okay.
school
I still think
yesterday.
Labor Day.
Your sister started school yesterday.
Yeah.
My niece started last week on Thursday.
Oh,
So school
that's
is back
early.
in. So
Okay.
here it is. We are at the
Oh,
end
s-
of your graduate summer. The rest of your life is right in front of you. What did you do to enjoy your break from school?
Well, first I graduated high school and went to PF Chang, so that was nice. For a month, I went to a little country. Not a lot of people know about it, called New Zealand. I hopped around the island. First, I went to the North Island, and I got to be in the workshop on their 10th birthday. So that was really nice.
The workshop.
Not
you
the
have yet
workshop.
to say the word weta. You are on
Oh, well,
such
I
a
was-
close basis with these guys. You just say the workshop.
I was building it up, and now you ruined it. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
You should be. But you should be.
Guys, I'm coming over. I'm going to crawl over the bar.
You should.
I'm literally going to crawl over.
Like a spider.
JC would be very upset with me getting my dirty hoof prints.
Hoof print.
My hoof prints.
Your ant feet.
My root prints. Those are not footprints. Those would be root prints.
Or
Keep talking.
I just said, but I got to work we're at a workshop for a few days, so that was really nice. But I can't talk about
Really
what
nice.
Was going.
You're like the queen of understatement today.
I am, but I mean, words can't describe what it was like working in what a workshop on the project that I got to work on. It was literally I can't find words to describe what that was like without getting emotional, and I really don't want to right now. But
Oh no, that's actually great for the show. If you're hi
yeah,
everybody.
more views.
Now, if you want to be emotional about getting that close to the creative epicenter of Middle-earth, you can get emotional about it.
Oh no!
If you wanna
It's good-
tell
it will
your
get
story,
ugly.
Tell your story.
It will get really ugly.
Do it. You were there. You were in
No.
Hobbiton. You went
I
to the physical
was.
set.
I was in Hobbiton. That was our next stop after Wellington, and I cosplay as Bilbo Baggins, and I did my cosplay at Hobbiton. But the funny thing was, it started raining that day. I mean, like raining.
Like the rain
Oh,
in
that's
Africa
cool.
raining?
Yeah, I guess sometimes it does rain down in Africa.
You passed the rains down in Africa.
Yeah.
Gonna take some time to do the things we never had to do.
But anyway, so
So yeah, the ultimate summer vacation for any teenager
oh yeah,
could never top this story.
yeah.
It could never come close to this story. Being on the other side of the world, where the stars are strange, and you look at the constellations in the sky, and you're like, "What's that?"
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like there's not
As
I-
Aragorn would
there's-
say.
there's not as much or nowhere near as much light pollution as there is there rather than here. I mean, if you we stayed there for about a month, and our second or not second week, but we went down to the South Island as well, and we took the base of Mount Cook. And if you look
yes.
up, like, I don't even know how to explain it, but if you've ever seen like those galaxy paintings or like the fabric that people do for the like galaxy fabric or nails or whatever, and how there's like a bunch of stars in it, and then you think, oh, the sky doesn't look like that. But it
Right.
does. It does down in New Zealand. I mean,
does.
less purpley, but I mean, like that bright.
And there are stars across the sky, across the heavens.
Oh yeah.
And you stop and think for half a minute about what it was like when the first elves, the first-born children of Iluvatar, were awakened by the lake shore in the darkness before there was any sun or moon to go across the sky. And the first thing that the Eldar, as they were to be known, the first thing they witness is the light of the stars of Varda.
Yes.
Because Varda was responsible for the heavens.
My homie. I
Yeah,
shouldn't
your homie.
say that.
Yeah, no,
I love Varda and I love Yavanna.
yeah,
like
Yavanna.
those
Yeah, I love
those
Yavanna.
two I really like because they're really cool. But that's another discussion for another
No,
day.
really, like, if anybody could pick, like, oh, there's all these gods and goddesses, but that's not the appropriate term. The Valar are all those
Yeah.
angelic beings. So if you had to pick one, which was like your personal favorite or your correlation, I would probably pick Ulmo,
Ooh.
the Lord of the oceans and the waters.
The Tolkien version of Poseidon.
The Tolkien version of Poseidon. Yes, or Aquaman.
No.
No.
Don't ever.
No.
No.
No?
No.
Don't you think Jason Momoa belongs in Middle-earth in the new Lord of the Rings show?
It depends.
No? It depends, yeah.
It
Jason Momoa,
depends.
he is welcome in the cast of this show anytime.
It depends.
I'm just saying that. So you had the ultimate high school summer vacation.
Nothing
The
in
ultimate.
Lord of the Rings should look like it takes ripped fuel and could be a GNC spokesperson.
Okay.
He is too ripped for Middle Earth.
Oh no!
Like I
that's
said, it
so-
depends. It depends on the role that he is given.
Thank
But
you.
if he was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. If
Yeah.
he's
Orcs
like
aren't
Gordon-
supposed to be ripped either.
What if he's
Yeah, orcs. Look
Tell-
at Azog.
Tell that to Lawrence McElroy, who played Lurtz. He
Yeah.
was huge, and he comes out of that breeding pit looking really scary and impressive. Not because he's like, Captain America before
He's
the
a little
injection and the
baby.
experiment. He's not the little skinny version. He's the big badass version. Okay. There is a reason why Lawrence McElroy was cast in that part. And I'm sorry, Lawrence, if I'm butchering the pronunciation of your name. Sala, I know you're watching. Forgive me. Forgive me. Anyways, I'm actually surprised you're here. I'm surprised you didn't stay and get a permanent visa to work and stay in New Zealand.
Oh.
I knew you fell in love with the place.
Well,
what
I
happened?
don't really want to say this over. Oh, that's funny.
There's
Somebody on
nothing to
Face-
say. right? Like the whole point isn't. It was trying to discover. Isn't the trope from all those movies of like everyone graduates high school and then they go on an epic adventure together, but it's always like friends. I don't think there's ever been a movie or story where family comes together upon high school graduation to come closer together, to bond. It's always like high schoolers bonding one last time before they all separate, and one goes to college and one goes to work with his dad and one goes into the army, and one takes,
one's just like, I'll figure it out later.
Right.
Yeah.
So, who are you in that trope of characters?
Oh, well, okay. Ouch. None of them. If there's another option to where it's like, the one of the characters goes off to another for another I lost my train of thought.
So you're not a classic character archetype?
I'm not.
You're just trying to. I don't know what you're trying to do.
No, I'm not trying to do anything. Character archetypes exist in storytelling, movies, film, television, books. Our archetypes exist for a reason because we all can identify. And Stephen
King recycled the same teenage characters in It that Steven Spielberg had in Goonies. You're looking at the same characters in Goonies that you see in other coming-of-age stories, especially within that generation.
Yeah, it's like a carbon copy.
There's a lot of tropes,
especially in this generation as well.
Yeah. And Stranger Things also borrowing the same tropes. But what I'm saying is that growing up, I identified with all of these classic archetypes. The desert-dwelling boy that dreams of adventure in Star Wars. Yes.
And all these other 80s movies, like you said, the Goonies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What archetypes, current archetypes that you're growing up with, Hannah, do you fall into? Like, what movie character of the last 10 years, now that you've just graduated high school, you're in the prime of your life, this is the summer of dreams, right after high school, this is the most memorable summer you'll ever have.
Indeed.
What character of the last 10 years do you identify with?
Oh, gosh. Like movies that...
Anything. Any character.
Okay.
Coming of age, right at this moment in time in life.
That's hard because I would say probably Bilbo Baggins, because I was very much of a homebody, but
the bug for adventure suddenly bit, and you're out the door.
Like I knew what I was gonna do. Like, I'm going to a good college. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Da 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 da, and then it's like, Sir Richard Taylor dressed up as Gandalf. What about this? And I just like,
So you needed that kick. You needed the kick to get out the door, and once you got out, you realized there's no going back.
Yeah, I just like it was always a thought in my head about like a scenario.
Peter says either Frodo or Holden Caulfield. That's a good one, Pete. That's very good. That's North
good.
Runner. There you go. Holden Caulfield. Yep, that's right. Or, when I was graduating and I was feeling, it was all about the Breakfast Club, and I'm really, really glad that Lex, you mentioned that. Another great coming of age.
Were they graduate? Were they seniors in high school?
Yeah, and you know what?
I think so.
There were so many specific, like people in our high school who were like just like these kids, like social strata. So it was an interesting examination, and I actually felt.
So where are the characters that
like many of those characters
speak your lifestyle? Not Bilbo. invented 80 years ago. Like,
Well,
is there what movies, what
Oh,
TV
gosh.
shows, you know, even
Oh,
right
I have-
after high school, you know, we had the OC and we had Jersey Shore, we had these, you know, television archetypes.
Right.
But what are the characters now that represent your generation that's graduating today?
As a whole, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's the problem is there's so many different people. I mean, like this was the case in like other generations, but I mean, I just feel like more so with my generation, people are just so diverse. Like, you know, I want to be a dog therapist and, you know, open up my own bakery for the dogs after they get therapy, you know? So it's like you can't really classify.
But isn't there a show like Wet Hot American Summer came out of nowhere,
Yes.
and an entire generation identifies with those characters. The fact that Netflix rebooted it a couple years ago
That's
because
true.
there was such an affinity for it, you know. And then a few years later there was American Pie, and that represented a whole class of graduating seniors and what are they going to do with their life next, and that whole genre.
Yeah,
Road
that-
trip, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're
Mean Girls.
saying no, I mean
I love
maybe
Tina Fey.
for
I-
one generation maybe, but I
No,
mean, I guess if you're, at least from what I've experienced with my friends, what they identify with is like Stranger Things, like the cast of Stranger Things, or like the cast of the Avengers. I don't know how, but well, no, actually, kind of. It's kind of hard to explain, but I guess like
So
those
we're not
two.
seeing any high schoolers on TV in popular culture anymore, other than The Flash and Riverdale. They're
You know, no, 13 Reasons Why and Riverdale are the two biggest, I think, pinpoints of storytelling for adolescence and coming-of-age drama and comedy.
What about
dramedy.
the Darker Minds? Like, there's all these young adult. There's all these like young adult films that are coming out. You know.
Yeah.
for you.
But do you identify with the kids in Legion X, the Young Mutants? Do you identify with the kids in Hunger Games who are
No.
struggling against a government? Or do you feel
Divergent,
like
all of that,
Yeah.
that whole genre.
no, Maze Runner and Divergent, just forget it. I don't even want to mention that.
No,
stuff.
like they're
That's
all
like-
the same genre. I mean, like for myself, I feel like, yeah, I'm just speaking for myself, but I feel like I'm not a part of my generation, and I'm like this solo weird like person. But I mean, I just
Spoken like a true artist. Spoken like a
I
true
guess
artist.
so. I mean,
Yes.
I was just speaking my mind
Yes.
there, but I guess so. But I mean, like, I know that people identify with these like characters and that sort of thing, like in television, like Riverdale, and most of the stuff I've never seen because it just doesn't really interest me all that much. But
Iravandi says High School Musical 3, maybe?
yeah, yeah, that's the movie that I identify with.
Carrie. Actually,
so
I
does-
love that.
do-
You guys are fun. The live audience is actually very fun, and thank you for participating
Does-
with us in
Does
the chat.
the Amazon's Lord of the Rings series have a duty to identify with certain age groups,
No.
certain points of life? Because I feel like
No.
young Aragorn is right on the cusp that you are, where he, if the rumors we were hearing are true, is he's on the. He has to start making decisions on his own.
It depends
like
upon-
his mother can't protect him anymore.
No.
You want to follow Gilrayan and all
if
that.
young Aragorn is going to start when he's 6 years old, then and we're never ever going to get to the age where he's going to be represented as a teenager. We don't know yet.
Well, I mean,
we don't know
yeah,
what
it,
they're
like,
going to
it-
show.
it
So it might
depends.
not be that Tolkien writers in that room have to all of a sudden make a statement for a generation. They're beholden to Professor Tolkien. They need to make a statement of how his characters live and breathe. They don't have to they don't have to fit the marketplace of we're making a generation thing just for the youth market to watch.
I think what's going to
That's not
happen
it.
is it really depends. Like, I do think that they're going to go the route that Justin's talking about, but I do think that it does depend on exactly what they're going to do, because like you know, Lord of the Rings is such a broad thing, you know. If they do go down the route of, you know, Aragorn's making his own decisions now, and it's like he's taking his life into his hands, you know, that movies and television nowadays kind of cater to like the generation that's, you know, like my generation. They kind of cater to my generation more so than, you know, make movies that almost everybody can identify with. But I do feel like Amazon will cater in a way to my generation and get new people into the show, but also make it like a timeless thing, like what Peter Jackson did and Ralph Bakshi.
You mentioned the words young Aragorn, and a lot of people in the fandom were immediately excited, and yet the cynical voices immediately said, are they turning this into, like, you know, a young Indiana Jones type show where and every one of our favorite characters has to all of a sudden be like, oh, we're looking at them when they were teenagers, as if that was a trope that has been overused, which it has in many films, sequels. It has been used a lot to say, oh, look, here's our characters, the Muppets. Now here's a different show, Muppet Babies. Let's just look at them when they're all young and like extrapolate that. It is a rather old, weather-beaten type of trope. So
but it works.
I understand
think
that
this
voice.
trope works because so many people use it. But what I'm hearing is that there aren't a lot of characters that Hannah has identified with. There aren't stories of teenagers graduating high school anymore and coming to decisions. It's Stranger Things, you know. Sixth grade, seventh grade, junior hires, you know, or it's Riverdale, which is 25-year-olds playing, 15-year-old forever.
I mean, I've never seen Riverdale before, but I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, you know, like there is one character. It's an obscene character, but if television and film just made more characters and more stories like this, then people like myself, I feel like, would. Whoa.
Do that again.
Yeah.
Can we get the camera on that? Justin, can we get the camera on that? Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. Dude. Woo.
Whoa.
Hoo-hoo. That's fun.
Sorry, somebody was just breathing fire.
Practical effects.
Exactly.
Definitely practical effects.
Yes. Burn them alive. But there's a musical called Twisted, and it's like a take on it's like a mashup between Aladdin and Wicked, and how they write Jafar in that. Like, I really, really, really relate to that, which, you know, can also be said as the same as like Elphaba and that sort of stuff. But I mean, I relate more so to characters like that, kind of, but more so of like the Jafar thing.
Let me ask a bit of a broadened type of question. Since Justin is looking for some direct parallels to some like 80s, like high school classic things that did make major statements to a lot of graduating kids and those generations. And maybe we're identifying the lack of such a thing here in pop culture right now, because again, the live chat people are blowing up with references to The Outsiders and Stand By Me and all these really, really great coming of age stories all seem to be from that time, that 80s time. So, you know, maybe we're lacking something like, I would have thought that Legion X or something about, you know, the younger class of X-Men or something like that would have risen and would have been something of a bigger statement, like we're the kids in school, it ain't what it used to be, and here it is, they've got mutant powers. So it leads me to this idea. You generally keep mentioning fantastical figures from genre works. You identify with characters, Bilbo and some other characters. Is it because you don't necessarily see real life fiction the same way, and you don't find parallels to yourself with real life? And maybe it's more intriguing for you as a creative person that you identify with fantastical characters who are in much bigger and brighter fantastical situations.
Yeah,
That seems to be the thing.
I do think that is a part of it because I'm much more of a I'm that kind of person that would be like, oh no, I don't want to watch. I'm trying to think of a movie like, something like Mean Girls or like a rom-com, 13 going on 30 or whatever. Like, let's watch
13 going on 30.
Labyrinth or whatever.
Yeah, you'd rather pick Labyrinth.
No, I would. I mean,
I would too. It's like the greatest coming-of-age stories ever.
It is. That's for certain people, but it is. I mean, in my situation, it's not applied, directly to me because I have a younger sibling, but I'm not, at that point of like, oh my gosh, they're stealing all of my attention and blah 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 blah.
Labyrinth is the exact example I was looking for, which is like a high schooler that goes on an adventure and discovers a part of herself and discovers adventure. And I feel like a lot of the shows now, they stay in their town. Riverdale stays in its town. Stranger Things goes on adventures, but they're junior hires. Like, I think there is a place because these tropes work. We fell in love with them, and they're great storytelling vehicles, and they set a model for people to live their life by. I think one of the roles that this Lord of the Rings series on Amazon can play is, fulfilling that, teenage 20-something Aragorn coming into his own, having to make decisions, and and all the people around him. That like Orlando or Legolas was positioned in the Hobbit as a whiny brat who,
jealous,
who
whiny
stared
brat.
at
jealous,
his best friend.
who didn't want to make war, that was
Like-
beholden to daddy, and now, so Legolas, the character, is now set up to, grow into the elf that chooses to go to the Council of Elrond.
Indeed.
So I just think that one of the roles in society that this show can play is to bring back some of that adventure, that teenage adventure where you discover yourself and you discover more of the world. You don't have to save the world. Look, we've already saved the world in Lord of the Rings. And, it's like nothing, you cannot create that weight again.
Yeah.
And that success. All you can do is bring in a sense of adventure, discover more about the world, discover more about yourself. And I think that's where this show can succeed. And I really want to see a teenage Aragorn and a teenage Arwen and teenage Elrond sons and,
Elladan and Elrothir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And discovering, all trying to find their place in this world, because if they make the wrong choices and they don't take a leadership position, Sauron wins. And that's basically what we see in Lord of the Rings is Aragorn does not step up. And because he doesn't step up, Denethor falls, Rohan falls, and because he doesn't make the choice of leadership, Sauron starts taking over. And I think we can see this in the show where he starts to make decisions that lead to what we see in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
That's very dramatic.
If they're able to capture the internalization of him processing all of this and then deciding, oh, no, I don't want to get into this, it's going to be bloody brilliant. If they can capture that kind of emotion and the layers of it and just the process of him going, it'll be great.
I think that Tolkien never wrote that story, Justin. I appreciate what you're saying because you're talking about this type of storytelling coming into the modern television marketplace. But ask anybody who's online, and if you guys have an opinion, please come and talk with us. We have live chat on YouTube, and there's a hotline right here. You can literally call or chat with us, because Professor Tolkien never wrote a coming-of-age story in the parameters that you're talking about. it's not to say that that narrative cannot be discovered. That narrative is certainly in there somewhere, but he didn't specifically spend a lot of time writing all that. I mean, hobbits come of age at 33. 33 years old, not 18, is when in Shire society the hobbits have the proper party for you where you've come of age and you take on responsibilities and family duties, and that's like, it's a different world. So and here we go. We've got the hotline ringing. Who is that? Hey, you're live on the OneRing.net. Where are you calling from?
San Jose, California.
Hey there. Who's that again?
This is Vernon Marr.
Hey, how are you? Good to have you back on the show. What's up?
Well, I just wanted to say that Hannah was correct.
Oh.
The dialogue in the Rankin Bass version of Return of the King was more accurate to the book with Eowyn fighting the Witch King.
Oh, yeah. That's true. The Rankin and Bass animated version is far more accurate in its dialogue. Different from the Ralph Bakshi version.
Okay, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's right.
Hannah was absolutely right.
Yeah,
Hannah was correct on that.
Good on you.
Good on you.
Wonderful.
Yes. Not the first time you've been absolutely right, Hannah.
So what Justin was saying about needing a story that speaks to you as an adolescent or as a person coming of age. I was in high school when all the Lord of the Rings movies came out, and I definitely think they played a big part in my coming of age story.
Indeed.
And it will be interesting to see what this new series does.
Right.
Yes, it will be. Do you think that Frodo has probably so far been the best example of what Justin was talking about a character making decisions to actually rise to the occasion when he's younger and doesn't realize those are the responsibilities he has to take on, but because he does rise to the occasion, it changes everything. It's like Frodo's story, to me, is the biggest coming of age and coming to grips with the horrors of adulthood in every way, in a sense. What do you think about that, brother?
I certainly agree in Lord of the Rings, yeah. I can't really think of another character that, except maybe Bilbo, that goes on a similar coming of age journey.
Good enough. Yeah, definitely. Yep. I like that. Well, thank you very much for the call, man. Thanks for coming back on the show.
You.
See, Hannah, you are right.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have you back on soon, brother. Thanks again. Very good.
Thank you.
See, now here's a shout out that I'd like to make a shout out to all the young filmmakers out there, of which there are many.
Yes.
We have a special guest who's really just relaxing. He's kind of, impromptu in the background. This is Alexander. By the way, Alexander Tushinsky, he's a young filmmaker. He's here in our live audience. And again, to everybody who's watching live or listening to us watching the archive later on, if you're here in Southern California, come on. If you're here in LA, join us at Scum and Villainy Cantina, where these wonderful people will make fantastic drinks for you. And Alexander is a director and a young filmmaker. Come on up and grab the microphone. He has a short film that is in its current 1-week distribution in Los Angeles for awards consideration. And it's a 22-minute short film. Hannah is also a very bright, up-and-coming young filmmaker. Filmmaker meet filmmaker. This is my friend, Hannah. Hannah, this is Alexander.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well.
I was very lucky. Alexander came all the way over from Germany.
Oh, wow.
To show his film and to qualify for award season. And I was curious to see the film after what I read about it online, and I just walked in, and it's called The Caligari of the Desert, right?
Caligari in the desert. But
Caligari in the Desert. And it's a fascinating film about an unexpected artist who is living in an unexpected place out in an old ghost town with hardly anyone in it. It used to be one of the busiest places during the gold rush in the California desert, way back in the day. And now there's only a few people, stragglers, who live there. And this man who's the subject of your film is creating art and artistry in the middle of the most unexpected place. Can you tell me a little bit about it, brother? Because I loved this film that you made, and I'm glad that you actually came in to see the show. You know, we get people who actually do come in and crash and talk on the microphone all the time.
I'm pretty excited by
yeah.
your enthusiasm for the film, you know.
Well, it's really lovely. It's really lovely, I gotta say.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and you know, normally I never do documentary, not never, but I rarely do documentary films.
See, though that's my thing, is documentary, so I respect it.
So in this case,
Yeah.
so basically my friend and I, 3 years ago, so we were just curious about the abandoned gold mining equipment in this town. You know, there's some ghost towns that are very touristy, that, you know, are like a museum, but this is actually a town that has 40 inhabitants left, so there are some houses, and there's this gold mining equipment from the 19th century around it, you know, it's just standing there. So we walked through this town, and then we walked through across Main Street, and there was one house where the door was open, so we peeked in and we thought, oh, this is a museum. There were all these silent movie artifacts and all these signs.
Yeah.
And Roger, who's the subject of the documentary, started talking to us and he said, no, this is just my living room.
Oh, wow.
I keep the door open so, you know, people who are interested can walk in and maybe strike up a conversation.
He has beautiful recreations of vintage signs, Americana, like vintage collectibles from turn of the century, famous diners and highway signs or advertisements that became familiar pieces of visual iconography on the American desert highway. And he recreates them, and he's also got this very fond little shrine to the old theater that used to be there in the town. And you know, didn't you discover in interviewing this guy that they were once shooting silent films back there in that town back in the day?
Yeah, so
yes.
It's pretty interesting. That's actually how he started out. He was really interested in his hometown, what this town used to look like, and then he found out that there were films being filmed back in the day, in the 1910s, 1920s, and he just heard about them, so he wanted to find these films and see these films so he could see what the place looked like back then.
Right.
And so he actually started out to be really interested in local history, but then he got really into silent movie history. And you know, he is, I would say, a walking encyclopedia of silent film by now. You know, you walk through this desert town and you meet someone who's so knowledgeable. You know, when the documentary had its world premiere this June here in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater,
yes,
we drove him out. It was the first time since 1963 that he was in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, and then we were in the courtyard of the Chinese Theater, and obviously you see all these hand and footprints of the stars in the concrete.
Yes.
And you know, all these, you know, all the tourists are walking there, taking a photo or two, and then continuing. And we spent, I think, half an hour or an hour there, and he looked at each hand and footprint and started telling me all about these people, and it was just a magical moment. Yeah.
That's so
wow.
cool.
Yeah, it's
That is so cool. So, now, what do you have on your mind, Hannah, young director, young filmmaker? You're talking to one right now. This is it. What is it that takes you past the point of inspiration to really wanting to apply yourself and do it? It's the subject. It's whatever it is that turns on the light bulb over your brain. For you, Alexander, it was the condition of this place and the artistry of this man in an unexpected place. Is that what it was?
Yeah, in this case, yes. I mean, normally I'm not doing documentaries. In this case, I walked at this place and it seemed so surreal. And I like Roger so much. He's such a great guy.
He
you know?
is, yeah.
Basically, when you meet him, he never talks negative about anybody. He's just a sweetheart, a really nice guy. And I thought, if there's no documentary about this place, you know, nobody knows of it. And I wanted to preserve what's there and this feeling of walking into his house. And
There you go.
But it seems like, at least to me anyway, I'm visualizing it as like a desert flower, almost like a lotus, I think, in the middle of like a desert that you want to show all your friends. That was odd, but you know, that was really odd. That was an odd description, but that's kind of what came to mind when you were describing your film. So
I like that. I like that image you have in your mind. Yeah. It was actually such a weird thing. My friend and I, who walked through this town when we met him the first time. So my friend is a film historian who's also very interested in classic cinema. I'm interested in silent films. I've always been. So we walked through the desert, through this place, which is a small town. There are some off-roaders driving their cars. There are vehicles there. And we walked through into this house, which it takes you to a different world. Somebody who's just obsessed with silent film. Out of all places, why would you meet that there?
Yeah.
And see that there. So, so
It's
this
very
picture
cool.
of a flower that's
Yeah.
so special. And it's
It almost kind of seems like also, I mean, even though they're silent films, they spoke to this man, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's just kind of an oxymoron, but, you
For-
know.
For the audience who is joining us live, welcome to the OneRing.net Tuesday, our Torn Tuesday show. And I'm Clifford Broadway. This is Hannah Greenwood.
Hi.
And the lyrical, disembodied German voice that you're listening to is my friend Alexander. How do we correctly pronounce your last name, sir?
Lushinsky.
It's Lushinsky,
Yes.
right? Alexander Lushinsky visiting the United States to bring his short film, for its qualifying run for the awards season. And you have a lot of very specific steps to qualify for any film festival or any process of getting your film exhibited and being part of the awards shows. They have very strict rules. So it's kind of cool that you found a screening room down here at Sunset, just a couple blocks from here, at Sunset and Wilcox. And
Yeah, that's wonderful.
and MoviePass, thank you, MoviePass is offering these films, and I'm like, this looks really interesting, Caligari in the desert.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because there was a picture of him building the mermaid, which is what he calls the maid mer. This character, Robert, is in this movie building cool, amazing recreations of vintage set pieces from silent films. He's making all these miniatures that are apparatuses that he physically moves, and he's making stop motion animation now. A man who admits that he's lived his life without computers, without technology. All of a sudden, you show up, Alexander, do this portrait of his life, and he gets bitten by the bug of filmmaking, and then he himself takes his passion, buys a computer, and starts filming and editing his most delightfully surreal little animated stop motion thing that he's doing. Wait till
That
you
sounds
see.
wonderful.
You guys look it up. You're going to love this. It's called Caligari in the Desert, and that is by Alexander Lushinsky.
Thank you.
And we're going to be seeing a lot more from you, sir, I'm sure,
Yes.
in the coming
It
days
sure
and
does
months.
sound like it, at least.
Now, let's talk about this. What a great position, a great entry point for a young filmmaker to make a short film, as opposed to trying to tackle a larger web series, or which a lot of people do. They want to start out with full web series, lots of episodes, or a bigger scale project. Like when the fans got together, they made The Hunt for Gollum, which
Right.
in the Tolkien world is one of the best fan film experiences out there. But what an ambitious project. Would you recommend, my friend Alexander, taking the route of, at the beginning of your filmmaking career, look more seriously at making short films?
It really depends. You know, I've done a lot of short films, and my first, it's actually pretty fun. I started out doing a feature film, actually, when I was 19, 20.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's ambitious.
But I wrote it in a way that there's only 2 characters that are in most of the scenes, and the other characters only appear in one scene. So it's kind of a journey of a main character. So I could film it like a series of shorts. I just had to have 2 people who are constantly in every scene. The rest I could just organize. Each day of filming was like organizing a new short film with new people. And so I did it over 2 years with local friends for no budgets.
wow.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Sound familiar, Hannah?
Possibly.
Working on no budget? Yeah. Trying to get the shot? I've seen 2 of her short films, and they're really quite fun and charming. And
Both of them, wait, I
Yeah?
think, yeah, both of them are silent.
both of them?
I mean,
Almost
with
no
the
dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, no. Yes. No dialogue in each one, because I remember the one that I showed you, and I'm like, what is the other one that I showed you?
Well, you showed me the one about the hot sauce
Yeah, with my grandfather.
with your grandfather, who's the star.
Yeah.
He's the star of the show. And then you showed me the other one that you made for class.
Yeah, that was my big senior cultivating
That was your senior year student film.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And you had the cooperation of a lot of people.
yeah, it
in
was that was the biggest production that I've done. That was my own thing. So that was really interesting. It took about 2-3 days to film, which is it sounds like nothing, but
No, it's I know how intense 2 or 3 days can be. You know, I actually did this short film a year ago, which is a silent film. I shot it in black and white. I had the idea because at the flea market I got this Super 8 camera for almost nothing, and I got 2 rolls of black and white Super 8 film, so I thought let's do a proper silent film with hand-painted intertitles. And that was done over 2 days, 3 days. The painting the intertitles took longer than doing the rest of the shoot, actually.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Roger, my friend in the desert, he paints these intertitles so intricately. I learned it from scratch, and I try to do the typography as good as possible.
Those are the title cards that show text
Yes.
in between visual scenes in the silent film.
Exactly.
Because for those who are not familiar with the silent film format, looking at all you millennials out there, you guys, it's the fact that it's a silent film and nobody can talk. So when people talk, it's silent, and then they'll drop in a plaque or a title card that has the dialogue spelled out so you know what the person just said.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate technique of filmmaking at the time before sound was added to film. Boy, that was an interesting thing. You know how hard the industry fought against talkies when they came out? The silent film industry was like, you're not going to kill us. You're going to make these talking films. And so that advancement in technology changed the art form so much. Now, you have a bloody high school class where you get to have filmmaking and media arts in your school. I
Yeah.
didn't have that in my high school.
Well, I mean, I went to an art-based school.
Oh, okay, well, lucky you. I
Yeah.
just went to a regular public school. In Germany, do they have more like practical media arts classes in the school system?
When I went to school, actually not.
Really?
I did films parallel to school in my free time with my parents' camera. I know it sounds cliche, but you know, actually,
Self-taught.
very
Yep,
recently.
likewise.
Yeah.
Actually, I was wrong. My very first attempts were actually short films. My first feature film, that was when I was 20, but when I was 16 or 17, I did this film with my parents' camera, and I had so many ideas, and at that time I was embarrassed, but my father did the cinematography. At that time I used a pseudonym for my father because I didn't want to be uncool, the guy whose father operates the camera, but yeah, I always did it parallel to school. I actually thought of studying physics when I was at school, and then I graduated school, and then I figured, wait a second, film is my big passion. I should study film, so I studied audiovisual media, which is a technical degree. Actually, you learned all the technological aspects of camera technology, sound technology.
Yeah.
Because I figured I have all the ideas, but I want to learn the tools of the trade, so I know what to
Right.
do there. Yeah.
Indeed. So cool.
Yeah.
What do you want to ask this guy?
I don't know. There's quite a bit.
Pick his brain. Filmmaking 101 here on Torn Tuesday. All right, let's talk. And hey, if you want to, my brother, lean in a little bit so that people can see you
Yeah.
on
Or
the camera. Oh, let me
come
get rid of
around
this.
back.
Should I come around then?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. You should. So that people are like, who's talking? Who's this disembodied
Who is this man?
German voice that we're listening to? This is Alexander. Hello, sir.
There you are.
There he is, everybody. We actually have him here. Welcome to the show.
Yes.
good
Thank
to
you for
see
having
you.
me here. Thank you.
Of course. He's the guy who created Caligari in the Desert, this beautiful, really beautiful, interesting portrait of an unexpected artist in an unexpected place. And I actually got a lot of the feels. I got all the warm fuzzies watching your short film because that's just the way it is. And the affection that you have for the subject. When I made my documentary film, it was about my affection for the Lord of the Rings community and the fans and the way that the fans behave as a family. And I found that that was the primary thing that got me through some of the most difficult demands of making that project. I lost a relationship that I was in because I was over-dedicated to my work. I put a lot of other things aside personally, and I worked and worked with Carlene and with John, and of course with our editor, Arnaud, who was French. And we had so much to do, and everything that kept us going was love for Tolkien. As long as you are the director or the producer involved in your project, if you have the love and the passion for that subject, for that thing you're doing, you'll go through hell. You'll go through hell and high water and anything in between to get it done. You will. So the lesson being, if you're a filmmaker, don't take on a project that you only feel half-assed connected to.
Yeah.
Don't
'cause then
take on
you're
a
just
project
gonna
if you're
be
not really in
miserable.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
is that true advice or what?
Yeah, actually, I had this conversation yesterday with a friend because I felt as a filmmaker, as an artist, you should try to, not look for things outside of your control that make you happy. So you shouldn't think I'm doing this film in order for it to be very successful or for it to make me a lot of money. You should do a film thinking, if I do this film, I'm very happy that I have done this film. Everything else is extra, so to say. But so that I agree entirely. Just do the projects that by themselves it make you happy to do them.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
for myself, I'm not an experienced filmmaker, but
they're all having conversations in the chat all themselves. You guys, Lex, Sarah, Stephanie, Iravandi, you're all having this very funny conversation. I'm just trying to look at it and follow it. If you have any questions for us guys, you can talk to us too. We're doing a show here. You could talk to us, or you could just keep talking to each other.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Whatever
That's
you guys
fine.
wanna do.
I'm just looking at you guys. But yeah, anyways.
But but for the second half of my senior year, I was asked by the art director of the school to do a promo for the theater. And in my school, the theater was the biggest, like musical theater, just theater in general, acting was like the biggest major that there was. And my major, filmmaking, was the smallest one. Go away. There's like a fly, sorry. but I was asked.
We should get the flamethrower back to get that fly. You guys want
Not on my
do you
head.
want to incinerate that fly? He's still here. I'm joking.
But there was
They asked you to shoot a promo for,
Yeah,
for the theater program.
yeah, they asked me to shoot a promo, and I mean it was just it was 2 days, but I had fun shooting it. It was just the management of it, and then going through the effort, you know, like editing, and I'm kind of a control freak like Peter Jackson. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, Peter Jackson. I don't mean to be mean. But
You're not a good director if you're not a control freak to
Yeah,
some degree. That's
I'm-
just the nature of the beast.
like with the editing, because I do all my own editing. It was just the editing of it was hell. The communication. I'm trying to think how I can say this without sounding like I'm complaining, but I'm just trying to get to my point. But the communication between the person who wanted me to do it and myself was non-existent, and I felt like I was pressured to do the promo and get it finished, but it ended up not working out.
It
so.
ended up not feeling like your own organic work.
No, so I
It didn't
just
feel
I
like it was
dropped
your own
it.
organic work at
Yeah.
all, did it?
No, because
See,
it was
that
very.
happens. That's exactly what happens.
It was very like it wasn't my style, and if you know me, I'm very you know, quirky. That's what I'm gonna say. That's the word that I will say.
We'll
but,
go with that.
But
Hi, Marfles. Welcome to the chat.
hello. But it was just very cookie cutter and stale. It was like, welcome to the school of, I'm not going to say the actual school name, but, you know, welcome to the school of blah, blah, blah. Look at these shots. Look at these kids that, you know, they get to see theater for free. You know, it's like, I get that it was a promo, but it was like, no, it has to be like this, that, this, and that. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, you could just hire somebody else to do it, because I'm an artist.
Not a hired gun.
Yeah.
That's the difference between some filmmakers. And you go to any films and you can feel it in the work. You can watch movies like when Bryan Singer directed his very first X-Men movies. He came to it with his own passion for X-Men. And then later on down the road, when Bryan didn't do it and they hired Brett Ratner as the replacement director, X-Men 3, therefore, doesn't feel the same. People are like, oh, you just messed up the whole Dark Phoenix storyline. It's all so stupid. And they're redoing the same old thing. And you're like, okay, that's because Brett Ratner was a hired gun. He didn't have it. It's not in his DNA to have his genetically mutated DNA. He's not a mutant. He's not a super. So you get Peter Jackson on board with The Lord of the Rings and his appreciation and love for Tolkien, and especially that he brought Fran and Philippa to work with him. They all loved Tolkien. And
Right.
the smartest thing they ever did was hire Philippa Boyens to co-screenwrite with them.
Oh yeah.
Because she was one of the best playwrights in New Zealand. And even though she didn't have a film career, she had the passion for writing, and a distillation of Tolkien was something she was quite capable at. And Fran and Philippa did the right, Fran and Peter did the right thing in bringing her in, because you just don't hire a hired gun who's not connected to it.
Yeah.
And the results are on screen in The Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and to a certain degree in The Hobbit as well. Because there was a lot of other factors going on that
Yes,
pushed Peter
that was
around.
that was messy.
Yeah, and
was
studio
quite
interference made The Hobbit different, and we sense it, we
Yeah.
feel it. Let me ask you, Alexander, we've never had this conversation. What's your level of Ringer fandom? How old were you when you read The Hobbit when you were a kid?
Well, it's a very good question. So
Ha.
I watched a Lord of the Rings films with a friend
Yeah?
a few years ago on DVD, and I don't even know which extended edition or normal edition this was. So
Okay, yeah.
I got to say a very basic level, which I'm a bit embarrassed to say, but listening to this, I will check it out much more in detail.
Have never read The Lord of the Rings, do you think Peter Jackson did a good job with presenting that story?
I mean, having never read the book, I thought these were marvelous films. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I was actually, when you said before that Peter Jackson changed dialogues, I had never realized that because I never knew that.
Back in 1999, we were so nervous about what Peter Jackson was going to do, as if our favorite book was about to be ruined, and that was everybody's attitude. Who is this guy? It was 1999. Nobody knew who he was except for heavenly creatures and some splatter zombie films,
Yeah.
which were fun, but not Tolkien.
Like Meet
And
the Feebles.
yeah, so I'll give Peter Jackson credit. He did something really quite beautiful with Heavenly Creatures. He discovered Kate Winslet and made Kate Winslet an international movie star. To your credit, Peter Jackson, you did that. But then he comes in and says, I'm going to do Lord of the Rings, and all of us were so nervous because he didn't have it on his resume. He didn't have anything to prove to us that he had the passion. So when the films come out, we love the Fellowship of the Ring. It blows our mind. But the fans still get nitpicky about Gandalf said the wrong
Yeah.
dialogue, and really, really nitpicky. And
My eyes are on you.
I know. And then by the time the Éowyn dialogue comes out, 3 movies later, we loved what we were getting, and he had lots of appreciation, but Peter was still getting things wrong. Or maybe it was Fran or Philippa. I don't know who wrote that dialogue. I really want to know. But we still actively talked online and said, this was great, except they really screwed up Faramir. Faramir does not behave this way. He would never take Frodo and Sam prisoner
Right.
somewhere. Or you ruined Éowyn's dialogue. But then they walk away with 11 out of 11 Oscars, and they win everything, and we're happy anyways, but we still like to bitch about it. We are the fans. We still like to bitch about it sometimes. That's the way it is.
I got to understand you. I understand you pretty well. You know,
Yeah.
in Germany, after getting my film degree, I studied history and literature for my second university degree, and I
Really?
yes,
Well, if you're studying literature for a university degree, wouldn't they have put Tolkien in front of you as university reading?
interesting enough, in Germany, I read a lot of German literature. You know,
Goethe.
German medieval literature, Goethe, of course.
Goethe, of course, yeah.
I remember
Right.
there was this one exam at university where I had to read a few medieval novels, actually novels written in the Middle Ages in medieval German for the exam. And then
Wow.
during the exam, they just asked one brief question that I could have solved by just reading the summary online, which kind of, but it was interesting.
wow.
But
That's
you know,
funny.
I actually did a short film about Wojciech, which is a German theater play.
Yeah.
And during it's a short film, and I noticed how much, when you make a film out of literature, how much is your own interpretation. Even if you try to
yeah.
stay faithful, to you it could feel entirely accurate, but to someone else who's read the same work but it has different feelings about it, it might seem off, and it's really
Right.
difficult. I think that's the beauty of literature. You read it and everybody has their own images in their mind and puts their stress on a different aspect of it.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like it appeals to like everybody, and it's not just one niche or niche, whatever the word is. Niche, is it niche? Niche.
It's called
little
niche,
Thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
niche. It's just not a niche thing, and it just seems like everybody could take away their own things from it, and it's not just like black and white, you know.
Indeed. Indeed.
Like-
Primswood is pointing out that Frodo didn't behave the way he was in the movies, the way he did in the
Oh,
books.
no,
He was
no.
a stronger character in the books. Yep. Hi, Omar. Hey, Omar. It's good to have you in the chat, buddy. And this is very interesting. Yeah, the fans like us, all of us who are really deep, granular Tolkien fans, we know how Frodo
Yeah.
walked and talked and behaved, and everything that Elijah Wood gave us was really, really beautifully done. But there were still some differences. Frodo in Elijah Wood's presentation seems much more quiet, and he doesn't say much, and he seems to be rather inward.
Yeah.
Frodo in the books, he can talk, and he says some important, very, very, very important things. His dialogue, Frodo's dialogue in Tolkien's original book is a miracle because he has insight. He can be so sarcastic and so funny. Frodo is quite an achievement as a character, and sometimes I just get the feeling that Elijah was just trying to give us like more of a blank sheet of paper so that we could read our emotions into his eyes. And they didn't give Frodo all of his best dialogue like he has in the books, that's for sure. Hey everybody, come on in.
Hi.
Bartender will take care of you over there. Yeah, we have people coming in live. Like I said, it's Scum and Villainy. You can come in and join us live anytime on a Tuesday afternoon. So let's talk about the excitement. You've heard about the $1 billion that Amazon Studios is going to spend on the new TV series,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you know why we're all excited about that. It's like a chance to go back to Middle Earth, right?
Yes, of course, I imagine.
Yeah, very much, very
It's
exciting.
like what the Potter fans.
yeah,
It's like what the Potter fans have now with Fantastic Beasts and where to find them.
Yes, I love it. Fantastic Beasts actually is a really cool thing, and Newt Scamander is a great character, and I'm very interested in seeing what Jude Law is going to do with Dumbledore. I'm really into
Yes.
Jude Law. He's awesome. I don't know if you saw The Young Pope on HBO, but that was quite a fascinating TV series where he plays the young Pope. Gosh, it was weird, but it was really cool. It was really cool. You can't do dialogue if it isn't there to do, so you're left to react to what others say. Frodo in the books was an extrovert, and the films he was an introvert. Thank you, Arowana Undomiel. That's pretty much something I was trying to say, but you distinctly said it better than I did.
Oh, this is interesting. My dear friend Madeline, hey Maddie, says even with the nitpicking of the Tolkien the Tolkien fandom is one of the least toxic fandoms out there. Pretty much everybody is so nice, not like Star Wars fans amongst others.
Yeah, how awesome is that? I agree with that. I agree with that there is a certain toxicity that has introduced itself into the Star Wars fandom in a weird way.
Yeah.
And Ringer fans, for better or for worse, have not really adopted any of those techniques of attacking actresses or actors that they don't like, or
Yeah.
like using the internet as a way to assassinate anybody for
Yeah,
creative disagreements.
It just seems like with the not bigger, but like with certain fandoms, it just trying to think. With certain fandoms, there's toxicity where it's like, oh my gosh, I remember there was this one story in 2015 about an artist who did a piece for Steven Universe of this character named Rose, and Rose is a bigger character, but she draw her like a bit skinnier or something like that.
Instead of drawing the character with her,
Yeah.
nice curves, the way she's supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't anything bad, but a lot of people got on her and started making like death threats or whatever to her, and she ended up trying to kill herself. But the creators of the show tweeted out, if somebody wants to draw our character in a different manner, so be it. It's,
Steven Universe is the last fandom I would ever expect to see that kind of toxicity.
It was bad.
Gosh, that's weird. Oh, that's so strange, because I love Steven Universe. Anyways, that's intriguing. Now, the question that Arowana Undomiel had asked, has Weta, the design people down in New Zealand, She asked if Weta has made any sign or any indication that they're going to help out with the Amazon series. We don't know.
Shrug.
Shrug, we don't know. They have not made any announcement yet. However, keep in mind, part of the press release that came out from the studio tells us that Amazon has paid an exorbitant amount of money to license all the original New Line Cinema footage and all the characters and film places and sets and props and elements. And that includes any unused footage. And Peter Jackson shot hours and hours and hours, days and days of extra footage. And it hasn't been used. So New Line Cinema has that stuff all tucked away. Amazon has the rights to use it. So you never know. We might get an edit, a certain edit, where they shoot on location with young Aragorn in season 1, and then they might drop in some helicopter shots that Peter shot way back in the year 2000 as principal photography for the Two Towers or Fellowship. We might not even know it, but the Amazon producers have the right to drop that footage in there. Oh, this breathtaking mountain view with all the mist and the clouds over, the misty mountains. Well, it looks like it's fresh, high-definition footage that was just caught on film just yesterday. Surprise, that footage is probably going to be 20 years old by the time it gets on our TV screen. Well, 17, who knows? I'm bad at math. But isn't that a weird and interesting concept? It makes us aware that they really want to make their new series stylized and cohesive with the elements of the original 6 films.
Yeah.
So Weta has not said yes, they're going to get on board, but everything that Weta has designed, every costume, every sword, every work of beautiful art in the background, that could all be repurposed over and over again in the new Amazon series.
Like in the
so
beginning,
now you know.
what I was saying, stumbling my way through. It's interesting because it kind of raises a question, at least for me, like, with the new Amazon series, are they going to follow like the themes or how Lord of the Rings tackles such genres as like romance or horror the same way as Peter does? Like, are we going to see, romance, not necessarily between Aragorn and Arwen, but, just romance in general the same way it's presented to us in like Lord of the Rings, or like, the horror of, the Nazgul, or if it in the new series, that will be pumped up or, left the same or not, is just interesting to me.
You know what? I'm intrigued by the idea, as you know, elves are immortal. And the relationship that Arwen has with Aragorn, she makes a deal to give up her immortality so that she can stay in a relationship with a mortal man. And hey guys, our camera's right here and we're live, so if you want to go right on through, thank you. We love you. Happy to have you here anyways. They'll serve you over there at the bar. The thing is that Arwen met Aragorn when he was a young kid, and he may have met her and just registered, oh, what a beautiful woman, when maybe he was a baby, maybe he was just 4 years old. Hey, help me out. Guys in the chat room, look in the appendix and tell me how old Aragorn was.
He was about 6,
I thought he was 4. He might have been.
I thought he was 6.
Because his father died when he was just a baby. Okay?
2.
Arathorn died when Aragorn was just a baby. But when Gilraen takes him to the elves of Rivendell, he may have met Arwen when he was just a little kid, and then he grows up years and years and years and years later. He's a young adult, and he sees her again, and he meets her again. Do you think it might have spooked him out a little bit to think that she was immortal? And he realized, wow, over the past 15 years that I've known you, Arwen, you haven't changed. You haven't aged at all. Can you imagine that would make the romance kind of weird and like, what? That is kind of weird, I think.
That would be very spooky.
Like, you're trying to start a courtship with a woman who's eternal, who never ages, and in all the time you've known her, since all of your memory, since you were a little boy, she still hasn't changed. Isn't that an interesting, weird thing to... That would put a pin in the romance that I've never imagined. That's just very weird.
I
very
suppose
weird.
with that being said, we'll look into the future with our all-seeing eye and hope for the best with the new Amazon series, I suppose,
Aragorn was 10 when the dwarves and Bilbo showed up, I believe. Thank you, Pete. Yeah, he was around 2 to 5 years old. Thank you, Arawano and Domiel.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
So
before
he
we...
was two. Okay.
So that's good to know. See, we have so many interesting things to talk about. Before we close the show, and we are going to be closing the show in the next minute or so, I want to say thank you to Scum and Villainy. I want to say thank you to the hardworking staff of this wonderful place and for hosting us and letting us have the show. Thank you, Justin, for starting on time, even though I wasn't able to get here. And I had to use a bird. I rented a bird. The scooter, the little electric scooter, because I missed the bus.
I thought you were making a joke.
No, I missed the bus, and so I had to take the bird. And the battery died on me while I was halfway here trying to get here. So I was late anyways. I had to wait for the next bus. So it was stupid. But anyways, I want to have another last shout out at the end of the show to the Dragon Dice people who have that really successful Kickstarter at dragondice.com. One more pledge. You guys go to that website. Trust me, it's the best fantasy dice game you've ever played. And if you want to get in on that Kickstarter, you're going to get tons of free swag because they're going to go way past their stretch goals. Go to dragondice.com and pledge on that Kickstarter. And I will teach you how to play. I'll get with you on Skype, and we will Skype together, and I will teach you how to play. And I'm serious about that. It's a wonderful game. Now, what can you tell the folks at home about where we find you, sir, and where we can find your film?
Oh, so you find me on my website, alexander-tushinsky.de. My last name is so complicated, but you find...
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of my films, of my short films, of my smaller films, I put on the internet for free on Vimeo or YouTube.
Great.
Oh,
because,
wonderful.
you know, I like it that people can just watch them. And a few of my bigger films, my biggest feature film, Timeless, is actually out on Amazon Prime. You can watch it there.
Ooh,
Oh.
that's right.
Which was-
Alexander Tushinsky, spelled Tuschinski. Alexander Tushinsky, you can find him on Internet Movie Database,
Yes.
IMDb. And Timeless is the name of the film?
Yes,
And it's
that-
on Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime.
See, everyone's getting into bed with Amazon Studios. How is that happening? That is so cool. Where can people follow you?
Oh, you can follow me actually on Facebook.
The Book Face.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite, and I'm on Instagram also. I got on Instagram pretty recently, but it's fun.
It is fun.
So Instagram and Facebook are the best ways.
If you're in LA over the next few days, use your movie pass or pay $8. It's so cool. And go see Caligari in the Desert. It's his short film, and it's currently playing at the Arena Cine Lounge at the corner of Sunset and Wilcox. Hannah, where do people find you online?
Well, you can find me online on Twitter as Cimmerillion28 and on Instagram as Baggins is here. But if you would like to check out my short films as well,
Yes.
you know, you don't have to if you don't want to. You just look up Hannah Greenwood. It's just my name without, you know, the middle name.
Like Greenwood the Great. Just
Yes,
think
Greenwood is the
Mirkwood.
Great. That's literally my last name, and I'm not making that up.
Yeah, think Mirkwood while it was still nice.
Yeah.
Before the neighborhood went south, when Sauron moved in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Sauron, the Dark Lord. Somebody asked in the chat, what about young Gandalf? No, Gandalf showed up on the shores of Middle-earth
We're glitching
as an
out.
old man. So it looks like we're about to close the show. It is 6:30. We're going to say goodnight, Gracie. I'm going to say find me, Clifford Broadway, on QuickBeam 2000 at Twitter and Instagram. And that's where you can find me. And it is lovely to have you here. Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you for a great show. It's good to have
Thank
you
you.
on. Thank you, Hannah. Awesome sauce. And thank you. You guys are a lovely audience. So long. See you next week. OneRing.net, Torn Tuesday. Bye.